Chosen ones, your struggles are preparing you for God's final choice. There's a reason why life has felt heavier for you than the average person. There's a reason why, even when you try to live normally, to settle into the rhythm of what society calls success, something always feels off. It's like a quiet voice inside you keeps pulling you away from the noise, away from the crowd, away from the comfort. That voice, that sacred tension, is not a curse. It's a calling. It's the hand of God on your life, not a conform, not allowing you to sleepwalk through the world like everyone else. And if you've been wondering why your journey has felt so isolated, so painful, so inexplicable, this is why. Because you're not being punished, you're being prepared, and not just for anything. You're being shaped for something final, something permanent, something eternal. You're being set apart for God's final choice. This kind of calling doesn't come with early applause. It doesn't come with a fast-track path to success. It comes with resistance, with friction. It comes with doors that close in your face, not because you're undeserving, but because you're too divine to be placed just anywhere. You're not meant for every room, every job, every relationship, every stage. You're being reserved, held back, hidden. And in that hiding, your character is being carved. Your patience is being refined. Your discernment is being sharpened. Because the ones God chooses last are always the ones He uses most powerfully. And if you're the type who's always felt like the outsider, the one who never quite fit, the one who could never just go with the flow, you're likely the one He's been preparing all along.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
We live in a world that celebrates speed, but God works through depth, and depth takes time. Depth takes struggle. It takes those long nights of wrestling with your own mind. It takes the heartbreaks that feel like they're tearing your spirit apart. It takes the seasons where your prayers feel like they're bouncing off the ceiling, where no answer comes, where silence feels like your only companion, and yet somehow you still hold on. That somehow is what separates you, that unseen endurance, that invisible faith. That's the mark of a chosen one. Because anybody can believe when things are going well, but you've been trained to believe through nothingness. You've been trained to trust in the unseen, to cling to hope when hope makes no logical sense. And that muscle, that spiritual grit, that is what God is developing in you for the final act. See, the final choice isn't just about being elevated. It's not about being admired. It's not about worldly success. It's about authority, kingdom-level authority, the kind that shifts atmospheres, the kind that breaks generational chains, the kind that doesn't just influence people, it awakens them. And you can't carry that kind of power if you haven't been crushed. You can't speak with that kind of weight if you haven't been silenced, stripped, and rebuilt from the ground up. That's why the struggle has been so intense, because you're not just being tested, you're being entrusted. Entrusted with pain so that you can carry healing. Entrusted with rejection so that you can carry compassion. Entrusted with obscurity so that you never confuse your assignment with your ego. Every wound you've taken, every door that's shut, every tear you've cried in secret, it's all evidence. Evidence that you're in training for something greater than comfort. You're being forged for the final move. But let me ask you something deeply personal. What if the delay you've hated is actually your protection? What if the struggle hasn't been keeping you from your destiny, but preparing you to survive its weight? Because here's the truth, destiny isn't light. It's heavy. It requires a version of you that doesn't exist yet. That's why you've been in the fire. That's why you've been misunderstood, overlooked, underestimated. Because God knew He couldn't release you prematurely. If He did, you'd collapse under the pressure. Or worse, you'd succeed in the wrong place and build something that looks good to man but means nothing in heaven. This is the sacred frustration of the chosen ones. We can feel what's coming, but we can't see it yet. We sense the magnitude of our calling, but we're still stuck in mundane routines, in places that don't reflect who we really are. And that's intentional, because God doesn't launch you from your comfort zone. He launches you from your crucible, from your wilderness, from your waiting. And the longer the wait, the heavier the anointing. That's the pattern. That's the law of divine preparation. And if you're still in the struggle, still in the refining fire, it means you haven't missed your moment. It means your moment is still being built. There's a reason your path has been so lonely. Chosen ones often walk alone, not because we're unworthy of love, but because the kind of love we're wired for has to be divinely orchestrated. Not everyone can walk with someone who's being prepared to carry the fire of God. Not everyone can understand your silence, your sensitivity, your depth. And that's okay. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to lead. And leaders are often misunderstood before they're followed. That's part of the cost. But it's also part of the glory. Because the same people who question you now will one day be the ones who say, "How did you survive that? How did you keep going?" And your answer won't be a formula, it'll be a testimony. You won't need to prove anything. Your life will become the proof that God hides his strongest vessels until the appointed time. The proof that pain doesn't disqualify you, it qualifies you. The proof that when God is your trainer, no struggle is wasted. Every scar gets turned into strategy. Every failure becomes fuel. Every delay becomes a doorway. So if you're in the middle of the struggle, don't check out, don't numb it, don't run. Lean in, ask deeper questions. Let the fire refine you. Let the silence teach you. Let the pain expand you. Because the final choice isn't coming for the comfortable, it's coming for the courageous. And right now, in the unseen places, you are becoming exactly who God needs you to be when that moment comes. Earthquakes of the soul, why everything must fall apart before the final choice. There comes a season in every chosen one's life when the shaking begins, not just around you but within you. The ground you once stood on with confidence starts to tremble. The beliefs you built your identity on begin to crack. The people you thought would never leave suddenly vanish. The dreams you clung to with all your heart shatter right before your eyes. And you're left asking, "God, what is happening to me?" But what if the better question is, "God, what are you building in me?" Because the truth is, before God makes his final choice, he sends an earthquake not to destroy you, but to strip you down to bedrock, to tear away everything fake, weak, or temporary, to leave only what is eternal, only what can hold his power. We don't talk about that enough. We love the idea of being chosen, but we rarely talk about the cost. The cost of being broken beyond recognition, the cost of having your life dismantled piece by piece until all that's left is the real you, the one God saw before the world lied to you. The one who doesn't perform anymore. The one who doesn't pretend to be strong. The one who finally lays down all illusions and says, "God, I have nothing left. Just use me." That's when the power begins. That's when heaven leans in. Because the final choice isn't made when you're at your strongest. It's made when you're at your rawest, when your soul has been cracked wide open and you're no longer trying to control anything. You just surrender. You see, the earthquake is necessary because your foundation matters more than your image. You can fake strength on the surface, but when the shaking comes, only what's real survives. And God will always shake what can be shaken so that what cannot be shaken may remain. That's spiritual law. You may lose relationships, jobs, status, opportunities, but you'll find yourself. And that self, that still grounded, unshakable self, is the one God has been waiting for. That's the version of you he can trust with the final mission. Because that version has nothing left to prove, only something to release. Have you noticed that before every major shift in your life, there was a breaking, a falling apart that didn't make sense at the time but later revealed itself as divine intervention? That's not coincidence. That's God's pattern. He deconstructs before he rebuilds. He allows demolition so that nothing counterfeit can sneak into your future. And when you're being chosen for something final, something irreversible, he will not risk the foundation. So he'll allow the earthquake. He'll allow the confusion. He'll allow the stripping away, not because he's cruel, but because he's intentional. You don't build a temple on sand, you build it on rock. But the shaking doesn't just remove what's around you. It exposes what's in you. The fears you never faced, the pride you never confessed, the trauma you never healed, the attachments you never surrendered. All of it comes to the surface. And this is where most people run. They numb themselves. They distract themselves. They try to rebuild the old life too quickly. But chosen ones, we're not allowed to rebuild what God has demolished. We're called to wait for the new blueprint, to sit in the rubble, to listen, to let the dust settle and hear God whisper, "Now that everything false is gone, I can show you who you really are." That's the moment when clarity begins to rise. It doesn't come all at once. It comes in fragments, in dreams, in revelations, in divine encounters you can't explain but you feel in your bones. That's when you realize you didn't lose everything. You lost what was never truly yours, what was never meant to go where you're going. And what stayed? That's your foundation. That's your gold. That's the part of you God is going to breathe on, multiply, and send back into the world with fire. So let me ask you something uncomfortable, but necessary. What are you still trying to hold together that God is trying to let fall apart? What identity, what relationship, what dream are you protecting that's actually blocking your next season? Are you willing to let it go? Are you willing to trust that what feels like a breakdown is actually a breakthrough in disguise? This is the paradox of the chosen ones. We rise highest only after we've fallen the hardest. We shine brightest only after we've been shattered. Because our power doesn't come from perfection, it comes from transcendence. From crossing through the fire and emerging purified, not bitter. From losing everything and finding God. And when that happens, something irreversible changes in you. You stop begging for clarity. You stop performing for love. You stop negotiating with fear. You become still. You become clear. You become ready. The final choice doesn't come to the most talented. It comes to the most surrendered. And surrender is born in the earthquake, in the silence after the storm, in the moment when you realize you are still breathing, still standing, still here. And if you're still here, it means your story isn't over. It means the shaking didn't take you out, it woke you up. It pulled you out of the illusion and positioned you for the real thing. So if everything is falling apart, let it. Let it collapse. Let it burn. Let it break. Because whatever remains, that's your destiny. That's the real you. That's who God was always after. The refining fire, how God uses isolation and delay to shape his final warriors. There's a sacred season that almost no one talks about, yet it defines the destiny of every chosen one. It's not glamorous. It doesn't make the highlight reels. It's not the part people celebrate or understand. It's the season of isolation, the long, quiet, often painful stretch of time when it feels like God has pressed pause on your life. Nothing moves. Nothing makes sense. You're not who you used to be, but you're not yet who you're becoming. You're in between, stuck in the wilderness, and the world keeps spinning as if you've been forgotten. But you haven't been forgotten. You've been hidden. Hidden in plain sight. Because when God is preparing someone for his final move, he doesn't rush them into visibility. He refines them in obscurity. In this sacred isolation, everything you thought you needed gets stripped away. The applause, the plans, the people who once made you feel important, gone. You're left with silence, with stillness, with God. And in that silence, the fire starts. It's not the fire that destroys. It's the fire that transforms. The refining fire. This is where God doesn't just work on you, He works in you. He goes deep into the vault of your soul and burns away everything that can't carry the weight of your calling. The insecurities, the pride, the fear, the need to be seen, the addiction to outcomes. He removes it all not to hurt you, but to harden you, to forge you into someone who can hold divine authority without being destroyed by it. Most people won't survive this fire. They'll run from the silence. They'll try to recreate the parts of their lives God is trying to bury. They'll mistake delay for denial and quit before the breakthrough. But not you. If you're still reading this, it means something in your spirit is still burning. A quiet endurance. A knowing. A fire that refuses to die no matter how much time has passed. No matter how many detours. No matter how many nights you've cried yourself to sleep wondering, God, where are you? And the answer is He's closer now than ever. Because the fire proves it. The fire is evidence that you are being prepared, not passed over. God doesn't refine what He isn't going to use. He doesn't isolate what He doesn't intend to elevate. You're not delayed because you're unworthy. You're delayed because you're dangerous to darkness, to systems, to anything false. And dangerous vessels must be purified. They must be emptied of ego. They must be trained in silence, so that when they finally speak, their words carry the weight of eternity. That's what the delay is doing. It's not holding you back. It's holding you down so you can grow roots strong enough to support what's coming. But here's a question only the brave can answer. Can you still love God when He's silent? Can you trust the process when nothing is happening? Can you stay faithful in the fire? Because it's easy to shout when doors open. It's easy to praise when the platform arrives. But the chosen ones are different. We're not shaped by applause, we're shaped by the absence of it. We're not anointed in the spotlight, we're anointed in the shadows. And that's why when the moment comes, we don't just show up, we shift everything around us. Because we've been through something. We've become something. Something unshakable. This delay is not a punishment. It's a gift. It's giving you time to become the version of yourself who can represent heaven on earth without compromise. It's giving you time to learn obedience, to master humility, to develop spiritual vision. It's giving you time to heal the wounds that would have sabotaged your authority. And it's giving you time to listen, really listen to the voice of God without distraction, without filters, without noise. Because when the final choice comes, you won't have time to prepare. You'll need to already be ready. And readiness isn't about perfection. It's about alignment. It's about walking in rhythm with divine timing, in tune with the Spirit, in sync with heaven. That's what the fire is producing in you. A deeper yes, a clearer no. A soul that knows what it's here to do and refuses to be seduced by anything less. That's why you've been alone. That's why you've been delayed. Because you're not building a brand, you're embodying a blueprint. One designed in heaven, one that can't be rushed, copied, or compromised. So the next time you feel forgotten, remember this: God hides His treasures until the right moment. And you, dear soul, are a treasure, a weapon being formed in the silence, a warrior being trained in the wilderness, a voice being tuned to the frequency of truth. And when your time comes, when the fire has done its work, you won't need to announce yourself. The world will feel it. The unveiling, when God's final choice steps forward, everything changes. There is a moment in every chosen one's life when the hiding ends. The silence breaks. The delay lifts. The weight of all the waiting, the crushing, the isolation, it suddenly makes sense. Not in theory, but in reality. Something shifts, both in you and around you. You don't feel ready in the way the world defines readiness, but you are deeply aware it's time. The unveiling begins. And when God's final choice steps forward, everything changes, not just for you, but for everyone connected to your obedience. You see, the unveiling is not a grand performance. It's not about lights, cameras, or applause. It's not a moment you orchestrate, it's one you respond to. It's quiet power. It's inner authority. It's the weight of someone who has been through hell and still carries heaven in their eyes. People start to ask, "Who are you?" But the truth is, you've been this all along. You were just being formed in the fire. And now the fire is complete. Now the anointing is active. And now your life begins to speak. When a chosen one steps into divine timing, the atmosphere shifts. Places that once rejected you suddenly make room for you, but you no longer need their validation. You've already been validated in the silence. Relationships that once confused you become clear. You were never meant to fit in because you were born to stand out. You carry something rare now. Depth, vision, discernment. You don't just react to life, you respond to spirit. You don't chase doors, you walk through the ones God opens. You no longer perform, you embody. You no longer strive, you flow. And here's the miracle. The same things that once broke you are now the tools of your power. Your pain becomes your platform, not to promote yourself, but to heal others. Your scars become maps. Your silence becomes strategy. Your past becomes prophecy, because nothing was wasted. Every delay, every betrayal, every tear, it all becomes a part of the message you now carry. A message that isn't just spoken, it's felt. That's what happens when God's final choice steps forward. You don't just make an impression, you leave an imprint. This unveiling is not just for your benefit, it's for others. Because your obedience becomes a lifeline. Your healing becomes a mirror. When people see you, they see what's possible. They see that you can go through darkness and not lose your light. That you can be broken and still be worthy. That you can be hidden by God and still be chosen by Him. That's the power of your unveiling. You don't just rise, you raise others with you. But let me leave you with this. The unveiling is not the end. It's the beginning. It's the start of your real assignment. The mission you were prepared for in the fire, shaped for in the silence, and refined for through every delay. Now you move with intention. Now you speak with clarity. Now you love with boundaries. Now you give without losing yourself. You're no longer trying to find your purpose, you are the purpose. You've become the vessel. So walk boldly, not in pride, but in presence. Walk knowing that you are not here by accident, that you have been touched by fire and trusted by God. That the world may not understand you, but heaven backs you. And when a chosen one steps into their final form, no force on earth can stop them. Not because they're powerful, but because they are finally aligned. You are not who you were. You are not what you lost. You are not what you feared. You are what God preserved. And now you are what He is releasing. This is your moment. This is your unveiling. Go forward. The world is waiting. Mace.